Hi, my name is Ryan McCabe from Great Valley Propane, General Manager of Great Valley Propane. I'm here today to talk to you about common propane tank sizes that you might have at your home or business and to explain common usage for the various propane tank sizes that we're going to talk about today. First tank we're going to talk about today is a common barbecue tank. A common barbecue tank holds about 4.6 gallons of propane and weighs just about 20 pounds. Getting that? As you can see, the best part about a barbecue propane tank is that it's very portable. You could take it to a tailgate, you could use it in your backyard for grilling, portable heat solutions in a garage or something like that. And you can see in comparison to the other propane tanks that I'm going to explain later, the size and scope of a barbecue tank versus a tank that you would have at a permanent solution for your home. The next tank we're going to talk about today is a 100-pound propane tank. A 100-pound propane tank holds roughly 23.6 gallons of propane. The reason why it's called a 100-pounder because propane weighs roughly 4.2 pounds per gallon. The nice thing about these is they're relatively light. They can be moved around. So for like a new construction home, this can be used to cure the drywall and various other space heating uses. The next tank we're going to talk about today is a 100-gallon tank. A 100-gallon tank technically holds about 120 gallons, but you fill it to 80 to 85%. Therefore, the usable gallons in this tank is 100 gallons. You might have also heard this be called a 420. You wonder, why is it called a 420 or 100 gallons? Well, the reason is, like I explained earlier, propane weighs 4.2 pounds per gallon. So do the math, 100 times 4.2 is 420. Common usage for a 100-gallon propane tank would be for like a fireplace insert. Let's say, for example, you might have oil heat at your home or electric heat, and you wanted a fireplace insert. You'd set a 100-gallon tank, and that'd be used for that. Another great thing about a 100-gallon tank is that if you ever had a question of how full the tank is, there's a gauge in here. So some homes, you'll see it's pretty common, you'll have two tanks tied together that are used for a primary heat source. This is the preferred method for Great Valley Propane because the only other alternative would be like a 250-gallon horizontal tank. A 250-gallon horizontal tank is kind of like myself in high school. A little awkward, a little hard to place, doesn't fit in quite well. So we don't like to set them. They're kind of an eyesore around the house. So the preferred method would be to do two 100-gallon tanks tied together. And then now you have roughly 240 gallons of total storage and 200 gallons of usable storage. And that'd be our preferred method. The next tank we're going to talk about today is a 320-gallon underground propane tank. As you can see, one of the main differences from an underground propane tank is that this is a dark color green versus a white for an above ground tank. Reason that is because the above ground tanks would actually absorb heat, so they're white to reflect it. And underground tanks, it doesn't matter because they're buried underground. Common usage for this would be for whole house heating, or if somebody has a home where they use a lot of propane for hot water or an excessive fireplace usage, or they do a lot of cooking, maybe a restaurant might have a 320. They're not as common. Okay, one of the differences of an underground tank versus an above ground tank is you'll notice there's a neck that's sticking up. So this tank will be buried underground, and then this neck will be sticking up. And then when we make a propane delivery to your home, the delivery will put the nozzle right on the tank here, okay? And then that's how we'll be filling it. Versus an above ground tank, there's no neck, and they make the delivery right there. And if this is buried at your home, a 320-gallon underground tank, it would have a dome or a lid, and that's what you would actually see sticking out of the ground. The next tank we're going to talk about today is a 500-gallon above ground tank. A common usage for a 500-gallon above ground tank, you might see these in more of a commercial setting. A lot of restaurants, if they use propane for a cooking source, will have a 500-gallon above ground tank. As you can see, it's meant to be above ground. It has a thicker leg on it than your traditional underground tank. And then obviously it doesn't have the tall neck on it either versus the underground tank. When you're dealing with a 500-gallon underground tank, there's setbacks that you have to meet in order to place the tank. For example, you'd have to be 10 feet off of a home or building, okay, and you have to be 10 feet from a property line. In addition, you have to be 10 feet from an electrical source of ignition. So there are codes that have to be met. That's what Great Valley Propane does. We're experts on all the codes and where tanks can be placed, so we consult that before we set any tank. The next tank we're going to talk about today is a 500-gallon underground propane tank. A common usage for this propane tank would be for whole house heating. A lot of the times if you have this at your home, you can expect to use between 500 to 800 gallons per year. Nice thing about this tank, it's pretty versatile of where we could set the tank at your home. So if you were interested in something like this, a salesperson would come out from Great Valley Propane and we kind of walk you through the yard and see where we'd like to place the tank. And once this tank is buried in the yard, what you would see is the lid, or the dome as we like to call it. So this part would be sticking out in the yard, and that's really would be the only exposure once the tank is buried underground. The nice thing about a 500-gallon underground tank, a lot of the times Great Valley Propane will lease these to the customer. So it's the installation, setting the tank, burying the tank, the labor is all done at no cost to the homeowner. And then if there's ever an issue with the tank, any time at all, if there was ever a slight leak, or if there was an issue with the neck, this is the neck. If that ever arose, it's Great Valley Propane's responsibility to come out and fix that tank for you at no cost to the homeowner. So this is probably our most common application for your home for primary heat. Last tank we're going to talk about today is a 1,000-gallon underground tank. Again, a common usage for a 1,000-gallon underground tank would be for a whole house heating account. So propane would be your primary source of heating fuel, and we'd come in and bury this tank, again, in your yard. Same restrictions as a 500-gallon underground tank, 10 feet from the house, 10 feet from the property line, 10 feet from an electrical source of ignition. And once the tank is buried, as you can see, it all lives underground. So it doesn't take any bigger of like an eyesore in the yard, because this is all that exposed. So if you're looking at a propane tank from the yard, you don't really know if it's a 500-gallon tank underground or a 1,000-gallon tank, because there's really no difference at that point in time. Obviously, a 1,000-gallon tank, let me do my math, is twice as much as a 500-gallon tank. The other nice thing about a 1,000-gallon underground tank and a 500-gallon underground tank is we can put a meter, electronic meter, so Great Valley Propane knows at all times the level of your tank, and it allows us to make the most efficient deliveries to you, and you have the certainty knowing that, hey, these guys know exactly what's in my gauge at all times, because we have an electronic meter that actually pings a signal to our office, and we can see exactly how much propane you have in your tank at all times. Thank you for your time today. I hope you at home had just as much fun learning about propane tank sizes as I had explaining propane tank sizes for you. If you have any questions at all, and there's no silly question when it comes to a propane tank size, give Great Valley Propane a call at any time or visit our website. We're here and happy to come out and help with any questions that you have. Well, that's about all the time we have today, but keep on trucking.